So today in college algebra, we're going to show you how to solve non-right triangles. There's two ways we're going to show you to do that. The first one's called the law of cosines. That's what we're going to focus on today. In the law of cosines, there are three separate formulas. Now, the good news is the formulas are all basically the same format. They just have their terms mixed around, okay? So it's not a bunch of different stuff. So a lot of times students are overwhelmed by the fact that there's three, but they're basically the same formula depending on what you're looking for. All right, the other good news is that you don't need to memorize these formulas. They'll be given to you. However, it will be easier for you if you recognize them and are familiar with them. You don't necessarily have to memorize them, but are familiar enough you can just use them without thinking about it too much and having to look it up. It's just faster. So let's check into these and see what they do. All right, there are two main ways we're going to use the law of cosines. The first way is if we have a triangle that has side, side, side. That means it has all three sides of the triangle. Okay, now one thing about the naming of our sides and angles of a triangle is you might notice that the angles are always capital letters, where the sides are always lowercase letters. Okay, also, the sides are directly across from their angles. So side B is directly across from angle B, side A is directly across from angle A, and then side C is directly across from angle C. Okay, so if we're given the three sides of a triangle, we're given A, B, and C sides. So if I put them into the formula, it will look like this. Notice all the side values have been highlighted, where the only piece that we don't have is the angle B. So in this case, we would be solving for angle B in our problem. All right. The other type of triangle you're going to see is a side angle side triangle. In this case, you're given two sides and an angle, and the angle is directly between those two sides. So in this case, let's look at, we have side A and C, and then angle B directly between it. So we fill in the formula with those values. You'll see that the only piece that we don't have is that side B on the other side, which is the part we'd have to be solving for. Okay. All right, let's look at these in some context with some problems. The first one, we have a side angle side problem. We have side A, side B, and angle C. That means we must be looking for side C, which is why we're going to use the last formula. So we're going to put those values into the formula where they belong. Now, as you're putting them in, this is the only real step I need to see of your work. From here, I just need to see the answer, because this problem is, after the setup, is just a calculation question. Okay. This is very similar to what I was asking you for the right triangles. I need to see the setup with the sine, cosine, or tangent, and I just need to see the answer because it becomes a calculator question. Same thing applies to this. Okay, so you take 8 squared plus 20 squared minus 2 times 8 times 20 times the cosine of 60, and that would give you 304. You take the square root of that number, and that is your answer, 17.44. Okay, I don't even need to see the x squared equals 304 part on your paper when you do it. All right. Next type, let's look at a side, side, side. In this case, we're given three sides. We want to find angle C. If we want to find angle C, that means we have to put C squared out in front, because that's where the angle C is located in the formula. Okay, so we put the values in. Again, I just need to see this step and then the answer, because it's a calculation question. However, for these particular types of problems where you're trying to find the angle in the law of cosines, it has caused problems for students in the past, and let me show you why. I'm going to show you some of the steps to show you why it's a problem, and then hope that you will not make this mistake. Okay, in this case, you cannot just put all the values into your calculator and solve. There has to be some work. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to square a certain thing. So you have 4 squared is 16, that's the first thing, equals, then the 45 comes from 3 squared plus 6 squared, right? And then the negative 36 comes from negative 2 times 3 times 6. Right? Now the problem is many students will take the 45 minus 36 and get an answer. But that would be wrong. You're not allowed to do that. And the reason is that negative 36 is being multiplied by the cosine of x. So you can't add something when it's still being multiplied. So in fact, what you're going to do is subtract the 45 to the other side and the 16, which gives you negative 29. And then you still have negative 36 times the cosine of x on the right-hand side of the equal sign. You divide both sides by negative 36. Okay. When you do that, you take the inverse cosine of that answer, and you'll get 36.34. If you don't get that, please make sure you ask a question, okay, when we're going over questions for law of cosine. So you take negative 29 divided by negative 36, do the inverse cosine of that answer, and you get 36.34. So what I'd like you to do is try the next two questions, right? Try the next one, here it is, and then come back, see what you come up with, and see if it matches, and then we'll do the same thing with question number 4. All right, so pause the video and come back. All right, hopefully you pause the video, you tried this out, you're back to see how you did. So this is a side question, so we're going to put in all the sides. Because we're trying to find angle B, that means we're going to use the b squared as the first term in our equation. Right? So we're going to put the values in where they belong. Okay, so again, this is the only step I need to see. Right? If you want to put in more steps, that's fine. It's not wrong. I just don't need to see them. All right, so if you combine the 18 squared and the 8 squared, and then you multiply negative 2 times 18 times 8, you will get 388 minus 288. Now, again, you cannot combine 388 minus 288 because the negative 288 is being multiplied by the cosine of x. What you do is subtract 388 from 225, which gives you this. You then divide both sides by negative 288 and find the inverse cosine of that answer, which will give you 55.53. Get it? Again, if you're not getting this, make sure you ask a question in the Zoom. All right. Example number 4. All right, again, try this problem out. This is a side angle side problem. See what you get as an answer. After you pause the video, come back, and then we'll see how you did. So hopefully you pause the video, you try the problem out on your own. Here it goes. You have side C, side B, and angle A, which means you're trying to find side A. Again, this is the only thing I need to see as far as your work goes. From here, I would just take 6 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 6 times 13 times the cosine of 40, all in your calculator at once. Gives you 85.5. Take the square root of that number, you get 9.25. Okay. Next, let's look at these as word problems. Okay, so here we have a surveyor wants to approximate the length of a lake. He walks from one end of the lake to a point away from the lake. He then turns and walks toward the other end of the lake. Given the lengths and the angles shown, how long is the lake? Okay, so this is a side angle side problem. All right, it doesn't make a difference how you label these. Okay, the x value has got to be across from the 80. Okay, so we're going to put our values in, and again, it doesn't make a difference which one you pick. You could label it any way you want. It's fine. What we do know is, though, that B and C in this case are going to be the 200 and 300. Now, it doesn't make a difference which one is which because they're interchangeable, right? And this is the only thing that I need to see of your work, okay? Because you can put in 200 squared plus 300 squared minus 2 times 200 times 300 times the cosine of 80, all in your calculator at once. If you do that, you'll come up with this big number. You take the square root of that number, and you get 330.40. Okay, now it's going to be important when you do word problems with law of cosines and law of sines later on, even with the right triangle trig problems, that you draw your picture. Okay, the picture here has already been given to you, which is nice, but the next one, not so much. Okay, so after the hurricane, the small tree in my neighbor's yard was leaning. To keep it from falling, we nailed a 6-foot strap into the ground 4 feet from the base of the tree. We attached the strap to the tree 3 feet up the tree. How far from vertical was the tree leaning? Okay, so first thing we got to do is figure out what all the values are. So the 6-foot strap is from the tree to the ground, which means it's going to be right there. All right. The ground and the base of the tree where the strap is nailed into the ground is 4 feet, which is the bottom. And they attach the strap 3 feet up to the tree. So there's the 3 feet. So what we're looking for is how far from vertical is the tree leaning. So we want to find the angle between the tree and the ground. Okay, so if you look at the tree and the ground, that's going to be there. We want to find out what that x value is. Okay, so this is obviously a law of cosines problem because you have a side, side, side. We're looking for that angle x. That means the 6 has to be the first thing down. So it's going to be 6 squared. So we put our values in. Now, as long as we have the 6 squared in the right place, the 3 and the 4 could be either way. It doesn't really make a difference. Okay, and then what we're looking for is the angle x. Okay, so again, we have to figure out what this is. Again, all I need to see is this answer, or sorry, this written down for the work. But again, remember, this is one of those questions where you can't just combine all the terms together at once. So you have the 3 squared plus 4 squared is equal to 25, and the negative 2 times 3 times 4 is the negative 24. Again, you're not allowed to subtract 25 minus 24 because the negative 24 is being multiplied times the cosine of x. So instead, you subtract the 25. Then you divide by negative 24 and take the inverse cosine of that answer. It'll give you 117.28. All right. However, if you read the question is how far from vertical was the tree leaning? Well, vertical means that the x on the ground would be 90 degrees. We want to find out how far away from 90 degrees that is. So if the x value is 117.28, we're going to subtract 90 from that value to figure out how far the tree is leaning. We subtract 90, we get 27.28. And that is it. Okay. I would suggest that you work on the practice. Okay, this is a new topic that you've never really seen before, and you're going to need some practice to get it right. So I'd strongly suggest you practice, especially with the calculator, so that when the time comes to ask questions in class, you can ask some good questions. All right, good luck.